Caroline Voaden.
Thank you, Mrs Harris. It's an honour to speak under your chairmanship, and thank you to the member for Stevenage for opening this debate. And I'd just like to acknowledge all the people who have signed the petition, and Mark and John for all their work. I'm looking along the row, I'm not exactly sure where you are. It's good to see you. So I rise to speak in this debate as someone who unfortunately has very personal experience of the issue that we are debating today. 22 years ago now, my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer when my daughter was 2 and our baby was just 5 months old. He died a year later, a week before Ellie's 4th birthday, and Laura was just 17 months old. So they are now brilliant, brilliant young women, and I'm extremely proud of them. But it's been a long journey, and I can say from the bottom of my heart that grief lasts a lifetime, that bereavement issues, they come and they go, and they change as the children grow up. You know, the grief is quite strange when you're 3. You don't know where daddy's gone. When you're 17 months and you can't even speak, I think she could just about say daddy, but you know, well, she was babbling a bit, but, you know, it's very, very difficult to explain at that age. So you then have to go through and explain again and again and again at different stages of life as they grow up. You know, one of the things that you read about in books, but which is actually true, is that for bereaved children, it's an issue that keeps coming back. So they'll be okay for a few years, and then they'll move schools, and suddenly it starts all over again. And I remember when both of them started secondary school, there was a conversation about what do I say? Do I go in and say on day 1, oh, my dad's dead? Or do I keep it quiet? You know, And, you know, I did remarry many years later, and then there was a question about, do I call him Stuart, or do I just say he's dad to my friends? You know, and the girls used to just refer to us as our parents because it was easier, because they didn't want to have to keep explaining. So one of the things that was very, very difficult was retelling the story at school over and over again. So Ellie started school 6 months after her dad died. And I had some brilliant friends who came to the house on day 1, and we all went together to start school, because I knew that she would be one of the only kids there who didn't have mum and dad at the school gate on day 1. And it was like that every time. Every school carol concert, every play, every parents' evening, every sports day, for years, feeling like there should have been someone else there who wasn't. And one of the things that was really hard was that the school didn't seem to tell. It felt like every year I had to tell the class teacher, and it wasn't a whole school experience. So I had to keep retelling and re-explaining. And when they went to secondary school and had lots of different classes with lots of different teachers, it's really quite something that if things are difficult, that you then have to keep explaining it again and again. So you know, I just think this petition is so important. Maybe things have changed a bit in the last 21 years, but I think the fact that no national data is collected is a sign that this is an issue that we still really haven't got to grips with. The Childhood Bereavement Network estimates that more than 46,000 children in the UK experience the death of a parent every year. So that's 127 children that are going through this every single day. And we collect data on so many aspects of our children's lives, from school performance to health statistics, even the number of children affected by divorce. But when it comes to bereavement, these children are invisible in terms of policy, planning and support. And it absolutely has to change. Bereavement is one of the most difficult experiences any child can face, yet we've got no clear plan or pathway to support these children. The impact of bereavement, we know, is lifelong and can present emotional and psychological challenges. And I do remember phoning Winston's Wish more than once as a parent to ask for some advice when things were kicking off and not going very well. And they were absolutely brilliant. And shortly after, about a year after Nick died, we joined the Widowed and Young Foundation. And I eventually went on to chair Widowed and Young for a couple of years. It's an absolutely brilliant organisation, and I couldn't have survived without it. And I remember in the car, we used to go away for weekends with Way, and I had lots of friends who all had small kids. And I do remember in the back of the car one day, the kids chattering away, and one of them said to the other, "What's a brain hemorrhage?" And the other one explained, you know, and for them, it was so normal that all their dads had died, and they just talked about it. And it was so important for them to be able to sort of connect with other children who had experienced the same thing and who they felt able to talk to. Yet at school, it wasn't part of the conversation. Their friends didn't know how to talk about it. They didn't really understand. You know, my daughters have often said, "Oh, my friends never mention it. They never talk about it. You know, it's just kind of brushed under the carpet because they feel awkward." So, you know, I do think having it on the curriculum, we don't talk about death enough in this country. I mean, we've talked about it a lot in this house over the last couple of weeks. But I think Friday's debate was also an indication that we really don't have these conversations in Britain. We feel very awkward about it, and I think it's really important that it becomes much more of a normal thing to discuss. So I'm going all over the place here. I'm just going to go back to the bit about data, which I've got written down here. If registrars were required to ask about the number of dependent children at the point a death is registered, we could at least begin to understand the true scale of the issue. And then local authorities would be able to use this data to make informed decisions about the resources required to support grieving families in their area. And nationally, it would help make the case for a coordinated response to childhood bereavement and ensure that bereaved children get the support they need. And I believe that registrars at that point could also signpost people to useful organisations if they knew that there were children there. Because believe me, as a bereaved parent, you need all the help you can get, and to know that there are people out there who understand is really, really important. The collection of data would also identify children who are not receiving support and would allow local services to monitor whether the services available are meeting the needs of bereaved children and whether enough children are receiving the help they need. And it would allow us to ask the important questions: are our systems reaching these children, and are they getting the right kind of help? Without this data, we cannot ensure that our services are meeting the scale of the need. And just to turn briefly to the issue of educating children, we can't expect children to process such a significant loss on their own, and we can't expect teachers to navigate these issues without proper training and support. And there are organisations, as the Honourable Member for Walthamstow said, a lot of this stuff has already been done. The resources are there to support teachers, but just giving children a space to understand what death means, what it is, what it's all about, is an opportunity for a bereaved child not to feel quite so alone and different. Children need to be able to express their grief and be supported in doing so, and teachers need to feel empowered to address this difficult subject, ensuring that grieving children do not feel isolated or misunderstood. If such education were part of the curriculum, we could ensure teachers and support staff have the tools and knowledge they need to support children at the most difficult time in their lives. Grieving children need to feel safe, understood and supported. The impact of losing a parent can be devastating. It affects every aspect of a child's life for a lifetime. And without understanding the scale of the issue, without having the right data and the right systems in place, we are leaving bereaved children to navigate this experience with little support and leaving their parents to do a really difficult job on their own without the wider support network that they need. It's time we recognise the needs of bereaved children, and I would urge the Minister to see what we can do as fast as we can do it so that more children get the support they need. Thank you.